making this soap then. So it's going to be another sort of scene type soap, hopefully a cute little gnome in a country scene. Now, fragrance oil I'm using, one of my good old favourites, one of my first fragrance oils I ever sort of bought into my line, and that's Black Plum and Rhubarb fragrance from Candle Shack here in the UK. It smells really lovely, fruity, without being a sickly fruity, and it behaves beautifully in cold processed soap. So that's what I'm going to be using. So first of all, I want to do a green layer for some grass. Now for this layer, I only want a very small amount of soap, so I've just got it in my small pots. And I know you probably can't see that because it's sunk to the bottom, but I've got some lime mica in there from You Make It Up and some shimmer blue from Mica Mama. The reason I've done that combination is I wanted a slightly darker green for my grass, and I don't have a dark green in this assessment, so I can darken my lime up by adding some blue into it. I've got my lye here and my sodium lactate. And then because this is only a very small quantity, I'm just going to mix it up with my... I always get asked quite a lot of questions from people about where I get this and what it is. I just got this from Amazon. It's called a Greek frappe mixer, and I find it so much better than any of those sort of battery ones or anything, and it's just really good. Okay, so I'm quite happy with that colour, and for that colour I did about a 4-to-1 mix, so 4 parts of my lime mica, which is obviously quite a bright yellowy green, and 1 part of my shimmer blue mica, and I'm quite happy with that. Okay, so let's add our fragrance oil. Now I've recently started using, I've really enjoyed using them actually, these glass, I suppose like scientific pipettes. I've always really disliked the plastic pipettes, the fact that, yeah, you can reuse them, and I always do try to reuse them, but they're quite a pain to scrub out, and I'm always very careful about what I use them for the second time, as it were. But these glass ones are beautiful. You can get them beautifully clean and ready to go the next time. Certainly they are a little bit more expensive than the disposable ones, but they're going to go on and on for ages. So let's just go... Okay, so let's just give that a nice stir in. Now this is a fragrance oil that doesn't do anything horrible, it doesn't accelerate or discolour, and it holds its scent beautifully. And because this is a layer I want to set up, not do anything with patterns, I'm going to give it another blend. Okay, I'm not going to blend it too much, because even though I want this to set up quite quickly so I can get on with my next layer, to me it's more important to get this into the mould nicely and not have any air bubbles, and to make sure it fills all the gaps. So I still want my soap to flow really nicely. Yeah, it could be a bit thicker than this, and for me it's much better for me, I find, to wait a bit for this to set up, rather than get it thick in the pot and then struggle to get it in and have air gaps and bubbles and things. So I'm just going to add that in. And it'll just find its level nicely when it's all runny, but I will obviously rough it up for when I want to add my other parts into the soap. So I have had a slight change of plan. What I've got with my embed is, by the time I get to use it and pop it in the soap, that green is going to be quite set up in the bottom. And this is the bottom of my embed. It's my gnome's little legs. So what I'm just doing here is I'm just filling some of this green into this gap here, so that I'm happy that by the time I go and put it onto what might be quite a firm layer at that stage, I shouldn't get any gaps sort of between my gnome's little legs. Because we don't want any air holes, do we? Right, so there's that done. So this is all nicely set up now, and what I've done is I want it really set up to the extent that I can tip this mould completely over and not have it slide around the mould. So therefore probably a little bit more set up than I'd want if I was just doing a textured surface. So I'm now just going to go in and do some texturing on the surface. And then I'm going to do my tree trunk. Now I think this is the sort of trickiest part of the soap. I've done tree trunks in soaps in various ways before, either extruded them or have made a soap the day before and used that to make a tree trunk and carved it out. But I want to do this soap after I've done my gnome embed. I want to do the rest of it all in one go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mould and I'm going to tip it quite severely up on its side, so that when I pour my brown in for the tree trunk, as that starts to set up, I can then sort of move that into the area I want. And again, I'm not going to scrape it with a scraper or anything, I'm just going to move it with a spatula. Okay, so let's go and just get my oils for my tree trunk. Okay, now I've just put the most minute bit of activated charcoal in there, already pre-dispersed in some oil. And I'm just going to pour a little bit of my brown in, just so I've got a much darker bit of brown, which will then give me, hopefully, a tree that looks a little bit more realistic. I don't want just one solid lump of brown, so I'm hoping to just have some darker bits too. Okay, and then I'm just going to add this darker one and do sort of like a in the pot swirl, just to... Okay, so sort of badly mixing the soap in, really. So now I need to get this. Now you're not going to be able to see this very well, I'm afraid, because I need to get my soap mould tipped over a nice long way. This is the Cheshire Cat, I think it's called, from Customs Crafts Tools. Okay, so as you can see, I've got this really long way tipped over. It's not quite flat, but it's not far off, and that's why it's really important that I got that green set up. So I'm just going to pour my tree trunk in. And the idea is I want it to stay at the side, and I don't want it to spread too far over the grass. Okay, so I've sort of got that, let's see if you can see. So I've sort of got that smeared up the side. I'm now going to push it down a little bit, and then as it thickens up, I'm going to try and sort of scrape it into the tree trunk shape that I want. So essentially fatter at the bottom and thinner towards the top. Okay, so I'm just going to muck around with that. I'll probably do it off camera because, to be honest, you can't really see what I'm doing anyway. And then we'll come back and have a look at that and finish the rest of it when I'm done. So now I'm pretty happy that I've got to the stage. Can you see in there that my tree trunk is nicely staying against the side? So I want to now build up some sky area and get my gnome put in. So My sky, I've got some shimmer blue from Mica Mama and titanium dioxide, and I do this at a ratio of 1:1 to get a nice sky colour. Now I am going to just pour off a little bit of this because I want to sort of get the bit around the gnomes set up nicely and then be able to tilt my mould a bit. Okay, and what I want to do now is get my little gnome. I've got to try and get the gnome in there without touching that tree, so that could be quite tricky. Okay, so here's our gnome. I've cut it to size. And I want to give it a nice push down so I hopefully don't get any air holes. Remember, I filled that gap under his legs anyway. So hopefully that's all right, and that help hold it standing up. And then what I've just done is I've just taken that batter that I've mixed. It's still pretty fluid, as you can see, and I've just popped it into the microwave for about 10 seconds. So it's now at 114 rather than sort of 80 odd that it was. So what I'm hoping there is it's going to be nice and fluid to flow in and fill in all those gaps for me. But then it will start to set up nice and quickly, and it will allow me to then tip my mould as I need to, but allow me to have enough soap in there to hold my gnome nice and securely. So I think I'm ready to go now. Can you see how that's all nicely set up in there, and it's not super stiff, but it's stiff enough to hold my gnome, hopefully, and stop it falling over. Whereas the stuff here, because I just kept this at the temperature that I had it, is still really nice and runny. So I want to have a little bit more blue next to the tree. And then I want some sort of leaning more towards one side. So again, let's try and get some sort of angle going on this. And I've actually got that tree now on the top of my mould. So it's important that all this stuff's set up, isn't it? So it doesn't come crashing down. So I think I'm now set up enough. So all I want to do with this, as you can see I've been poking at it already, is try to shape it to get sort of the bottom of the branches. Now I'm going to have the tree going pretty well most of the way across. But I don't want it to just be just a straight line up the side. So I'm just going to shape it so hopefully kind of looks like some blue sky peeping through some of the areas of the tree. So once again, I've got my lye and my oils here, and this is in some more of that just lime mica, and then I've just dispersed a little bit of the blue I was using earlier into this other jug. So what I'm going to do is I want 2 shades of green for my leaves in my tree. So I'm going to make them all up using the lime and then pour half of it off in with this blue, so that turns it into the darker green. so now I'm going to take those and put them into some squeeze bottles and finish off my tree in my normal way of doing trees. Okay, so I'm just going to go in and finish this off. I'm going to concentrate first of all of pouring into any sort of tricky little gap bits that I might have. And then I just literally want to just go, what is that with me today? And bring in my leaves. Okay, so there's everything in there and all scraped out. It's still pretty fluid at the moment, and I do want to shape the top so it's not completely flat, so it sort of carries on the look of the tree. So once again, I'm just going to leave that for a little while, and then we'll come back and shape that top. Okay, so I think we're at a point now where I can just give this a little bit of texture so it looks like the top of the tree rather than just having a flat soap. That will do us, and so I'm just going to pop that as normal into the oven to C-pop, so into the oven on a nice low temperature, turn the oven off as soon as it goes in, and then just leave it overnight. I will cover it so that that will stop any soda ash appearing. So here we are the next day with our unmoulded soap, so let's give it a cut and see what we've got inside. There he is. Oh, look at that. I'm really pleased with how that tree's come out. As I said, I normally make a separate tree trunk the day before, but that's because it goes in the middle of the soap. But that's worked really well as a tree towards the edge of the soap there. And it's given us a nice shape with our tree. So I quite like him, little gnome doodling along through the woodland. What I will do well, I'm sure I'll remember because I'll hear this when I'm editing, is I'll put a picture up of my other gnome soap I've made. I made a soap of a gnome sitting down asleep next to a toadstool as another soap. So I'll add that one as well. So there's my, they're so funny, aren't they? There's my gnome going through the woods. And if you did want to get yourself some gnome extruded discs, they are available in the shop now, so you can always grab yourself some of those and make yourself your own funny gnome soaps. And obviously it'd be great for Christmas as well, wouldn't they?
And I'll just leave you with a few pictures of both of those gnome soaps. The next shop update is on Saturday the 7th of May at 6 p.m. UK time, where you can buy a number of these soaps that you've probably seen me making on YouTube, and also lots of the soapy tools that you've seen me using if you want to recreate any of these soaps for yourself. There'll be a link to my shop in the description just below the video. I hope you've enjoyed this video, and thank you so much for taking the time to watch it. I do really appreciate it. If you did enjoy it, why not give me a thumbs up? And if you'd like to see what I'm making in the future, why not subscribe to my channel? Thanks for watching, everyone. Happy soaping!